Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Gourmet Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. I just ran a funny text from a buddy right as we went live. That was a very, very bad idea. How we doing, gents, on this glorious April 21st, just 3 days away from the draft?
Hey, ready to go, baby. Let's get it.
Yes, sir.
I'm doing well.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just doing well. That's all.
Hey, there you go. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Y'all see you later.
Shake it's doing good. Now, I want to give a shout out to Drew, who's been sending me, found me a couple of cannoli places in Green Bay. We're going to try to hit up there. And I'll tell you this, Mr. Larry, I just want to get this out of the way.
Yes.
I'm not going to read what he wrote on the note, but he probably never listened to the show again, knowing that I shared this, but I don't care. The dude's amazing. He literally sent us a card. Sent us a card with a couple fitties and said, "Hey, man, y'all have a meal on me, have a daddy soda on me, enjoy the draft type thing, man." I'm just telling you, the people that we've met doing this pod are just absolutely amazing. So, again, thank you so much to Mr. Larry. Thanks, Drew, everybody helping out. Looking forward to meeting a bunch of you at the draft as well. So it's going to be an absolute blast, man. And we did crack 204,000 views in the last 28 days. So, channel's doing great. Everything's kicking in. So we're ready to roll. Get ready to go. We're going to hit on some Goody pressers tonight, if that's cool with everybody else. That sound good, fellas? Kind of, we haven't heard from Goody in a long time. Let's see, where he's at in this whole process and kind of what's on the forefront of his mind. I want to give a shout out to the local media too in Green Bay, the Beat. They asked some damn good questions, this presser, and they really navigated it well to try to get as much information as possible. So kudos to those guys. Matt Schneidman got a good pop out of the crowd as Goody got him. I don't know if y'all seen it or not, but we'll play that clip as well. So we ready to roll, boys?
Ready to go. We got Excelio in the house.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm doing work in the background, Clayton. So where am I starting?
You're good, dude. Listen, just work on the board. Let's get that horizontal completely updated. I went through as soon as I got off of work and added in roughly 100 grades in for Daniel Jeremiah. The board shifted dramatically in some cases, and then also went through and added in a ton of Greg Cosell. I literally went through the scouting write-ups that he did over, well over 120 players, and was like, okay, this is what I think we should give here in a bonus.
So I'm just starting at Ashton Genty and going from there. Just update all those numbers from there.
You talking about the horizontal board?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, man. Let's just build the board out and be ready for it to be laminated tomorrow, and we'll all have a copy at the draft. So that's it.
You got it.
All right. Appreciate everybody in the chat. If you would hit that like button on your way in, really, really thank you guys and gals for hanging out with us, man. Y'all are good to go. So let's hit it, boys. Let's go ahead and get to a presser here from Goody. There we go. That'll work. And Emilio, is Emilio off the screen now? What just happened here?
Yeah, you just kicked me off. It's cool.
I can still hear you though. That's really strange. Let's see if it'll let me add an honor. This is really. No, can't do that. Dynamic grid.
I've never seen that. How is that even possible?
Yeah, that's really strange. Well, I did it so we could have in the background. Let me see if it'll let me edit this real quick. I apologize. Obviously, we were not ready to go. It would not let me add a third. Unbelievable. Emilio, you can hear me though, right?
Yeah, no, I got you. I'm still here.
All right, cool. Well, we're just going to leave your ugly mug off the screen and you work in the background, all right? You chime in anytime you want.
Yeah.
To the back of the podcast, Emilio.
All right, here we go, guys. Here was Goody. He was asked about aging rookies because of the NIL. Obviously, players are staying in college longer now because they're making, in some cases, millions of dollars to stay in college football. Can't blame them one bit. So what you're going to see is this shift of players getting older coming into the league. So I know people are going to freak out that someone's not 21 and a half years old and being drafted and then bitching and moaning the entire season because they're too young and inexperienced. But that's something that's going to continue to evolve and change. Here was Brian Gutekunst on that topic there.
You're in those 5 years removed. The COVID years, some red-shirted, and then NIL. Is there a pocket there that might be there in the 6th and 7th rounds or Saturday night of guys that are playing college football for 4 or 5 years?
I hope so. I mean, I think the thing that and I think I spoke on it earlier, one of the last times I talked, but it's a unique class. The numbers, particularly on the bottom of the draft, and even in free agency, undrafted college free agency, were just really high. I think there's a ton of guys that came back that would have come out earlier that came back and played because of NIL and the transfer portal, and really, again, we've got a bunch of guys in this draft that played 6-7 years in college, right? So we got a lot of older guys, 24, 25-year-olds in this class than we've had in the past. We'll probably see that for a little while going the next few years. So that has made it a little bit unique because of the numbers. And, I'm always on a journey to try to, to narrow it down because it makes things clearer for me. But at the same time, the guys deserve to be up there. They deserve to be up there. And so we've spent a lot of time in that department.
All right, there you go. So that's obviously Goody talking about how the NIL is reshaping the draft every year, right? So I want to get your all's take on it. Is there anything you want to add to that? We're going to get into him talking about rookies contributing right away as well. But, Tim, this is something we talked about, man. As college football, the landscape is changing there. It's going to continue. You're going to get older rookies coming in to the league for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what NIL is, right? Name, image, and likeness. So I think if you're grinding and you're going to school and you're trying to get an education on top of playing football and making money for that university that you're playing for, nothing wrong with getting a little money for yourself. So you don't Chipotle while you're trying to go to practice and stuff. So I'm on.
Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth with how I feel about the NIL and what that's done, to the NCAA and total in college football. And one point, like Tim just said, for the first time in forever, young athletes that really don't get a lot of, they basically have to go to the 3 to 4 year kind of jail sentence before they can go out and make their money. You know what I mean? And then they come back and for the first time, they actually are able to make, like Tim just said, off of their likeness, they actually are able to make some money, and they probably are exploiting it a little bit, moving around and getting the most out of people and squeezing every cent they can. But I always think about, did you guys ever see that episode of South Park where they float the NCAA with Cartman? I'm just saying, student athletes. Oh, that's very nice. That's what we call them. Like that, to me, I'm happy they're getting paid, but it is going to affect the ripple effect is going to happen in the NFL. You never thought in your life that Goody'd be like, oh yeah, 6 or 7 year old, college players. It's like, he's grinding his teeth. Like, no.
Amelia,
I'll tell you one thing. One positive out of it is that, at least it eliminates this under the table backdoor kind of stuff that we saw in the past, right? At least it's all out in the open now. Everybody knows what's going on. So I think that's one positive we can get from it.
Chuck's saying kids doing 6 years in college got 8 actual credits. Yeah, we're drafting. We're basically drafting Van Wilder and Tommy Boy now.
Yeah,
there you go. Amelia, I know you're excited about it because that means college football players got their real names on the college football video. Right?
That's big. That's huge. I mean, being able to go through the cards and they're just telling me how good a player is just by their overall, it's money. But no, I do think it's kind of cool. Obviously, they're still going through it. I feel like kind of like a COVID thing too. We're finally getting past that. Now we can wrap, like you said, wrap his arms around how that's really going to work. I think that it kind of adds to the fact that they get to pick and choose, what they're doing on combine and drills like that. So I think it's kind of just ever changing, and you kind of got to work with it as it comes.
Definitely. All right, moving on to the next comment here, Tim, if you'll give me another screen grab, sir. We got Goody on whether rookies
Thug life.
Whether rookies can contribute right away or not, and do they expect rookies to contribute right away? Here was Goody's answer.
You need your first-round pick to contribute right away.
No, I think you'd love to, but a lot of you guys have been around here. It's great when they do, but that's not always the case. This is the transition to the National Football League is tough. It's not always easy. A lot of times it's really determined by opportunity. You know what I mean? If you take a guy in a particular area that he's just going to have a lot more opportunity than somebody else, and we try to stay away from that drafting for need. We try to just, take the best player available if that's possible. But most of the time, a guy's impact in his rookie year comes down to the opportunities that he had more than anything.
And listen, this is something we've talked about pretty extensively, right? Like we all get caught up in, you got to take a number one receiver. Guys, number one receivers aren't falling off trees, right? Same thing with like an edge defender. When you're picking on the back half of the first round, it's not like you're picking players that are just a slam dunk. They're going to step right in and be a starter. You would like for that to happen. And in last year's case, you had Edgerrin Cooper, second round pick. He should have been starting from the get-go if he hadn't been hurt coming out of camp. Like that dude, it just clicked. And that's what Goody's saying you'd like for him to, but your roster is built in a way that you don't have to have those guys contribute right away. I mean, think about the Jets who were picking high all those years in a row. They landed some damn good football players, right? But even the fact that they're putting people like Sauce Gardner and these high-end draft picks out on the field immediately, it's not like they're just every one of these players are dominating even in the top 10, right? You'll typically get 2 to 3 busts in the top 10 just about every year, right? So I think it's important that you curb the enthusiasm on these rookies, and then if stuff clicks, then that's absolutely awesome. So I don't know, Tim, you got anything to add to that, man? And the fact that, like we said, or actually we'll start with you this time, Jacob, with what Goody said there, I love that approach. Like, look, the chances that you get a receiver that's going to be better than Romeo Doubs, whatever, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, they're just going to step in there, all of a sudden be the number one receiver. It's highly unlikely unless you're picking in the top 10. In that case, maybe Tet McMillan, right?
Yep. Yeah. And that's what we've dealt with as Packer fans for basically my 7 years plus on this spinning earth, is that we want us to do so much with so little in the first round. And we expect so much without having the understanding that, we're usually picking way past 20, right? Wouldn't you argue that we probably are always 25 plus most years? I mean, you just don't get absolute blue chip gems that fall in your lap unless you're really good at drafting. And I'd argue that Goody, when they ask, with his record of drafting, do you think that when they ask him the question of, do you think that the first round or the first rounder that you draft needs to have immediate impact? He's going to say, absolutely. And every single one that I drafted sucks. And, they're never going to progress and all this kind of stuff. No, that's not what he's going to say, obviously. So he's going to have to take an approach where, especially when you're drafting for guys with traits like he has typically sometimes done, when you look at guys like Quay and even Devontae and LVN and Stokes, we saw potential that labeled them a first round pick because of the traits and the potential they had. Now, we have had the argument back and forth many, many times about whether or not that approach has been successful or not. I'd argue probably not as successful as we'd like in the first round, but as we just get out of the first, it's very successful. So it is what it is, man. And sometimes you're never going to hit 100% on the draft. It's just never going to happen. You're lucky if you hit 10%. And I think Goody consistently will hit anywhere from 20 to 50, and we should be happy about that.
Right. And we typically make those teams that they'll quote unquote luck up and hit on a bunch, like Seattle back in the day, that built the basically the foundation of those Super Bowl teams there in Seattle, right? The Super Bowl contending teams year in and year out. That's not normal. It's just like Philly. It's not normal that Philly has hit on so many draft picks here of lately, especially getting a little later in the draft, still in the first half, I believe, when they got Jalen Carter. But obviously it gets way more difficult further you get down in the rounds, for sure. What do you think, Tim? You got anything to add to that, man?
My bad. I'm looking at my Twitter feed right now, and I'm talking to McCall Hardman Jr. on Twitter right now. We're gonna go bowling after the draft. He just hit me up, man. So I gotta handle business real quick. But I will say this: one thing about a Goody that I've noticed, if he's got his heart set on somebody, he's gonna do whatever it takes to get him, and trade up, trade down, stick and pick, whatever it is. And at the end of the day, there is no doubt in my mind that whatever he's going to do in this first round is going to surprise a lot of us. That's all I'm going to say. It wouldn't put it, I wouldn't put it past him to, move back or stand pat. But, most fans will probably look at whatever he does as a reach if they're, not in love with the draft pick. We saw that last year with Jordan Morgan. Everybody was upset. And I think it was a good pick. But we'll see what happens.
Right. It could end up being a bad pick, right, Emilio? But as it sits right now, I don't know how people can just look at that and go, okay, He tried to fight through a shoulder injury he sustained very, very early in the training process, and all of a sudden he's a bust. It's amazing.
I mean, you got to give him some time. You're never perfect coming out of college. You're always Aaron Rodgers was always working on something in year 15, right? So it's like you always are trying to get better. I think that you got to give him a chance, and like Tim and Jacob were saying. I mean, obviously Goody's been cooking, and he learned from Ted, and he said even Ted put him in his place a couple times. So that's what it is. You just got to show up, do your job, and hope that it works out. It's all about the projection.
That's right. There you go. All right. So next clip here, a couple of first-round picks that they made here recently with obviously Quay Walker and Devontae White. He was asked specifically, do you have a plan in terms of that fifth-year option? I know Chris Ian's listening intently because there's 24 Krispy Kreme donuts on the line here. Here's what Goody had to say.
Brian, have you made a decision on the fifth-year option for those two guys yet?
I think we're pretty close. We won't deal with that until after the draft, but I think for both those guys, whatever mechanism we use, we'd like to keep those guys around for 26 and beyond. So whether that's they're doing the fifth-year option on these guys or extending them one way or the other, we're planning to do that. We'd like to do that.
So there, obviously, he's talking about you may end up using the fifth-year option to bridge that gap, but it sounds to me like he plans on keeping both of them. I think he's bluffing a little bit on the Quay Walker side of things here. And I don't know how you feel about it, Emilio. That's a lot of money for a stack backer that hasn't really been dominant. I think Quay's a good player. I don't think he's a great player. And when you got to pay him, a combination of stack backer plus edge money, that's a lot of money to pay out for somebody like that.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why he was trying to work it like, hey, we're going to try to get it squared away. He wants obviously to get it taken care of. You got to bring that kind of talent back, first round pick, that type of stuff. But I think you're right. There's no way he's really looking at that, fifth year option as the go-to. Let's get a 2-3 year deal done and kind of go from there.
What about you, Jacob? How do you feel about the fifth-year option there with Quay and Wyatt? And based off what he said, I mean, it just sounds like he wants them both back. I think Devontae Wyatt, if they can't reach a deal, I think he's going to hit them with the fifth-year option.
Yeah, I go back and forth with what I think about Quay Walker. I really want to like him, love the player, love the intensity, love the number, love everything he brought. It's just after 3-4 years of seeing what the product is, I don't honestly believe he's worth a fifth-year option unless he takes a real big step this year, which it's possible, and I hope he does. I really do want Quay on this team. If he can put it together, it's just I think specifically with Quay, you have to look behind him. Whereas as opposed to when you look at Wyatt, I don't see anybody really chomping at Wyatt's ankles, being like, we got somebody that's ready to replace you. Quay's got edge behind him, a guy that clearly was the best linebacker on this team. No question. And also you've got guys where possibly they could take a step, guys like Hopper and McDuffie, and maybe they can actually show us something there. So I would be less likely that he does it with Quay. I think Devontae has shown way more promise, way more kind of juice where we need him. As far as being we wanted a pass rush and 3-tech, right? That's what we got for sure. However, he's not a well-rounded 3-tech right now. So I could see there being a little skepticism on all of them. And I have to believe that there is a little bit of Goot wanting to stay with his own picks. You know what I mean? Like the guy he put his butt on the line and said, these are my guys. So obviously I wouldn't expect that he's going to cut bait that early with him if he doesn't have to.
All right. Get a dance with the one that brought you, man. And when you cut bait that quick, with a first round pick, Tim, it looks like you're admitting, all right, we missed on that one. As a fan, I appreciate that. But you got to think as a general manager, there may have been conversations in that draft room, in that war room, where you stood on the table for this dude and maybe 2 or 3 scouts were going, I like this guy better. You want your guy to pay. You want to give him every opportunity to pan out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we've seen precedents for that, right? Mm-hmm. Darnell Savage, Eric Stokes comes to mind. We can go up and down the list. So it's tough because you got your own name and reputation on the line. Like you said, you're standing on the table, beating the drum for a guy, and then you give him a year, 2 years, even 3 years, and you're waiting for him to, take that step, and it just doesn't happen. I can see why GMs in the league, want to give their guy every opportunity to make a splash. And sometimes it hurts, sometimes you end up holding on to a guy a little too long. I mean, we're the kings of, get away 1 year too soon rather than 1 year too late here in Green Bay, but it doesn't always work out that way. And we've seen it in the past couple of years. It does happen, especially with those first round picks for sure.
Absolutely. Willie with the super chat said Tom Grassi smoking a cig. LOL. Does this look like Tom Grassi, or is that what he's saying?
Is that supposed to be Goody?
That is Goody.
What are you talking about? That is good. Were you trying to say this is AI generated, Jacob? Hell.
No.
And is that supposed to be a SIG or something else?
I was going to say, I don't know.
Hey man, there was a couple images I had to rework them because it did look unfiltered, and I'm like, I do not want to send the wrong prop, the wrong message here. So, thank you for the super chat there, buddy. Grassi's the man. There's no doubt about that. All right, up next, Goody is asked about Tet McMillan. Listen to this pop he gets out of the crowd here as he got him on Matt Schneidman. Let's hear what he had to say about Tet McMillan.
Strongly on what they've done to kind of get us to where we are right now.
Brian, there was the report that you were the only GM to go watch McMillan's workout in Arizona. What
I was there.
Oh, you weren't? Okay.
No, yeah, I was there. I don't know if I was. Yeah. And I don't know if I was the only one there. I may be the only one reported to be there. But no, good. We had him up for our 30 visit as well. And we've kind of, he's, a third-year junior coming out. So we've spent a lot of time with him. So it's been good.
You've ended up with a pretty high percentage of 30 visit guys being on your team. So obviously you can't draft all 30, but when you use those, especially when you have 3 big name wide receivers be part of that process, you get the Javon Walker question every year, but do you think you're looking at the position any differently this year because of the visits you had and maybe where your roster is at that position?
No, I don't think so. I feel really good about our roster right now. I think that's one of the – it doesn't happen every year. Every year is a little bit different. But, if we had to go play next week, I feel really good about our roster and our ability to win and go compete. So, really across the board. So, hopefully as this draft unfolds, we're able to just kind of sit back and select the best players that fall to us. That'll be, I think something we've prepared ourselves to be in. So, no, I don't think we've looked at it really any differently than other than certainly if there's an opportunity to take a player at that position that makes sense, we'll do it. But I don't think we feel like we need to do anything.
I swear, man, I think Goody's in a good place here, guys. I really do. And that answer there, and again, him cutting up with Matt Schneidman, I think is absolutely awesome. He just seems like he's comfortable. He likes the squad he's got put together. We were talking about this a little bit yesterday, and I heard someone else talk. I swear I hear some live shows, whether it's Milwaukee or Madison. Amelia knows what I'm talking about. Do you ever get the feeling that people might be listening to our show a little bit, Amelia?
A couple of those lines, man, they sound pretty familiar.
And again, if that's the case, that's absolutely awesome because I love listening to those pods. I love listening to those live shows. But it's just funny how we cover a couple things the night before, and then all of a sudden, bang, they're talking. It's like a topic, But anyway, just hearing them kind of go through that whole process and talk about everything from a wide receiver standpoint. Tim, man, it sounds to me like Goody's in a real good place.
Yep.
And you have Tet McMillan in. You've got to at least be entertaining the option of, hey, if he falls far enough, we may trade up and get this guy. You know what I'm saying? I think it's highly unlikely it happens, and maybe they didn't get the information they needed to warrant them going up. But it seems like that was at least on the table, man.
For sure. And whether it's trading up or if he falls and we go wide receiver in the first round, I could see that being just as likely of a possibility, especially when you're talking about a guy like Tet McMillan, again, try to predict what Goody's going to do and see how that works out for you. The best you can do is stack your board up and look at these guys and see how the draft starts to fall. We talked about it last night, maybe 10 or 15 picks into the draft, you might see guys making moves. But I think Goody is just as content to stick and pick as he is to trade up or trade down in this draft. So, flip a coin and see what happens.
Yeah. What about you, Jacob?
Yeah, I don't see him going up for Tet. I just don't. But like Tim just said, if there is a situation where like Tet's out there and it's pick 20 or something like that, I could see Goody just being like, oh, all right.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
but I really go back and forth with whether or not the fact that Goody is in Green Bay, that it is at Green Bay, like if that's going to actually, I mean, he's going to say no and won't make any decision like for me whatsoever. It has to weigh a little bit. Even if he never admits it, even if nobody ever admits it, it has to weigh a little bit. The fact that they are in Green Bay, the hometown crowd, everybody's expecting it, the vendors, all, you know what I mean? Like there is some sort of aspect there where like there's a pressure on him to make that first round awesome. You know what I mean? I just can't imagine the thing where like, hey, with the 23rd pick, the Packers trade out of the first round. We'll see you tomorrow. It's like, all right.
I can see it. I can see that though, right?
I would love it.
I'm gonna do what's best for the team, right?
Exactly.
And that would be the ultimate. Your point though, like to your point, Jacob, like a little bit. You got to think that a little bit. Goody's probably thinking about that, but I don't think it's enough that it's going to influence him. Either way, he's gonna make the move that he sees fit. Right at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was just like a week or two ago. Mark Murphy actually made the comment like, "If it's best for the team, trade out of the first. I don't care that the draft's in Green Bay. I would be over the moon if they traded back. And would I rather them stay in the first? I probably would, just to kind of get your pick of that litter from 10 to 40. Like, okay, there's still some of the guys that's got the maximum grade in this tier type thing, if indeed it is pretty even from 10 to 40. But at the same time, if you traded out and got into the second and all of a sudden you've got 2 2s, 3 3s, and an extra fifth or something, I'm going to be over the moon, not too, man.
And that's what Goody was saying was like, if it's in our worst interest to trade out just so that we can get a couple more picks just to back up a couple spots, like we're not going to do it. If that's the case, we got to take the player that's there. We got to make sure that we can still get the guy if we're going to move back in the first place. So, it wouldn't be, I feel like, we get some of those trades. If you were to trade out of the first, that's like 10 spots. Even if you go to the Browns, you get the second pick in the second round. I mean, you're still losing 10 players right there. So you would think that it'd have to be just a trade back in the first and then kind of go from there to try to get a little capital.
Right. You guys, I think it was Ryan's pod this morning where the rumor on the street is that there are multiple teams looking to trade back. That doesn't just mean that we get to trade back. You have to have somebody that's willing to come up.
That's exactly what DJ was saying on his, was like, dude, he's like, yeah, I got a lot of teams that are trying to put it in reverse, not a lot of teams that are trying to put it in drive. Right. So I mean, that's a fact. I mean, how many people want to come behind us? How many people want to come up? Like, not a few. I mean, a few with the people remaining in the first. Maybe you get a couple of those, the Giants or the Cleveland, they want to get a 5th round option on somebody. Fine. But it seems so thin this year.
Now let's flip the script on that real quick. If everybody is looking to come back, that should make it a little easier to go up and get a Ted McMillan.
That's completely fair. That's completely fair.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Dave. I didn't cut you off, man.
No, I just was going to say that it like you just said, that it's an intriguing thing. It's a give and take. It's like if all these teams, I mean, look right behind us, the Vikings that have 4 picks. You know what I mean? They're definitely in that trade back division. But it's like, which team would you rather trade up with? You know what I mean? Obviously, you'd assume that the Packers are going to have more to give you, kind of thing. And so it is just kind of a cluster, and it does make for an intriguing first round, because I would argue that other than maybe the first pick and maybe pick 2, no one has any idea what the heck's about to happen. And that's pretty fun.
Yeah, it really is, man. I'm looking forward to Peter Schrager's mock draft. We got the most recent accurate mock draft by Brendan Donahue that we're going to cover either tonight or tomorrow. If we do a show tomorrow's going to be hectic. We'll talk about it at the end of the show. But Peter Schrager put out a tweet earlier today too, and he said the 2 guys who have won the interview process and are universally beloved as people in addition to their playing ability: number 1, Jalen Walker, edge; number 2, Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver. Yep. So don't be surprised if we trade up to get Emeka. Or, if he, somehow, some way falls to, I'm telling you, man, Greg Cosell knocked that one out of the park. He talked about Emeka Egbuka being, this dude is going to be a 10-year pro when he steps into your organization. And now you're hearing everything's just falling right in line for that. And you go back and look at these past Ohio State receivers. They have all translated over to the NFL almost seamlessly, right? Your Chris Olaves, your Garrett Wilsons, your JSNs, all of them. So Marvin Harrison Jr.
Marvin Harrison Jr. Yep, great.
You know what's
player.
crazy too is
I would feel really good about not getting Jaden Higgins if we in fact moved up and got Emeka Egbuka. Like, great consolation right there.
I will say this: going through Daniel Jeremiah's top 150, Jaden Higgins jumped pretty far. Matter of fact, we did not have a grade for him originally for Daniel Jeremiah. Daniel Jeremiah has him in the 46th spot.
Higgins?
Yeah, Higgins.
Nice.
So, and again, that separates himself from Trey Harris a touch. Trey Harris is now in the 52 spot for us. Jaden Higgins is in the 47th spot. So,
see, as big of a Jaden Higgins guy as I am, I love him in the second round. I don't necessarily love him in the first round. So if we go up to get Egbuka in the first round or a Tet McMillan or something, I'd feel great about that for sure.
Is it weird that at this point, I think that we have a better chance at Tet falling than Egbuka? And I've heard it from different people on multiple podcasts today, even that there's talks that rumors that the Jags at like 5, because think about this, the Jags at 5, a lot of people are saying you got to go D-line, you got a running back, maybe something like that. If the Jags were to go and get an Egbuka, who everybody like we're talking now is basically said, this dude is a consistent, like a plug and play starter that's going to be there for 10 years. They got him and Brian Robinson or Brian John, whatever the new guy was that absolutely killed it last year. Brian Thomas, thank you. And you got 2 wide receivers that are absolute pro ready that are on like their, one's for 4 years, one's for 5 years. That you can restart a whole organization from that. Like, so the fact
Duval.
Why'd you do that? it is interesting though. Like this draft is for certain teams, there are certain plug and play type prospects which could completely shift the rest of the draft, which is really fun. It is fun.
Yeah. All right, let's get into a little RAS talk, man. I thought this was absolutely awesome that the RAS conversation got brought up to Goody earlier today. Give me another screen grab there, Tim, if you can. So let's go back to the ghetto, the gangsta himself here, Goody. All right, there we go. We're good.
Oh, is that the one we're going with? Okay.
That's the one we're going with right now, okay? So here was Goody asked about RAS scores. And you guys have heard us when we mention RAS and it's baked into our draft board. How many times did we say early in the offseason, I don't think the Packers are using RAS scores, but they have their own athletic testing, their own system to determine that. We're using RAS as ours, right? And we won't go into all the details on how we use the RAS and the bonus system we utilize, but here's what Goody had to say about that.
Questions last year about the RAS score and how that fits in. Obviously, Stewart has a 9.99. I think Rashawn was a 9.95. In what ways do you use that as a puzzle piece? And how much of that do you have to be a little bit careful with, especially if production doesn't match RAS score?
Yeah, so we don't use RAS score at all. We don't have anything like that. We do have some analytic scores that our analytic people do on their own that measures, athletic traits and other things. But we've never really used an I know what that is. We've never really used that in any, whether it's free agency, the draft, or anything like that. So now I've come from the Ron Wolf, Ted Thompson, so like traits are very, very important to us. Testing numbers are important. And that's part of the changing world in scouting right now is, these guys are really picking and choosing what they do. We don't have universal numbers across the board like we used to. Which makes it tough. But there are some new technologies coming into play with GPS data and things like that, you kind of have to try to make up for it. So the traits are really important to us, but at the same time, on like a cumulative RAS score, we've never really used that at all.
There's so much.
All right, so there you go. That kind of answers the age-old question there. Coach Lynn says Packers beat are stepping up their questions this time around. I thought they absolutely crushed it. I really did, man. And listen, we've been critical of it at times. Like, boy, can we ask important questions? Like, what are we even doing here, right? So the fact that we're getting kind of to the meat, as we say down here, to the meat and taters of the whole conversation, I love it. Absolutely love it. What do you guys think about that in terms of the RAS score? I mean, I feel like we've been on that from jump, right? Like, hey, they do have their own athletic profiling that they use. The other thing too is he said another part of that presser kind of made me believe that they watch the tape and can determine how fast someone is, as opposed to just leaning on the 40-yard dash too, Tim.
We'll call it the TAS score, the TED athletic score. That's call it what you want to call it. We all know that, Goody's paying attention to things like this. He's not going to all in out publicly say that he's leaning on RAS. Of course, you wouldn't expect that, from your GM. So whatever they want to call it, the Packer athletic score, whatever their name is, they've got their measurables, and they're probably looking at, more factors than we are when we're breaking down these prospects. So I just think it's Goody doing exactly what Goody does, saying the right things and keeping what's best for this organization in mind at the forefront. Yeah. GAS, Goot athletic score. Brambo. I love
It's
it.
the gas, baby.
Yeah, baby. All gas, no break. Let's go. Do-rag in full effect right there. Gotta love it.
Right. Emilio, you got anything else to add, man?
Yeah, just like I think you were going to hit on it, Clay, but the fact that like the Power 5 schools, things like that, they can get the athletic, kind of numbers from that, having the tracking and all that, GPS tracking and the speed monitors. So obviously you got to really do your research on those small schools. Maybe North Dakota State, any of the, anybody you're trying to get out of, D2, D3, you're going to have to really do some digging, but that's all fun of the game. I mean, that's why they brought in Goody, right? Because his scouting report was so clean. He had so many hits. He knows what he's looking for. I think that we really just need to trust him. I do think that we are onto something, though. I feel like, when we're kind of dialing it in, even Wildy's question of like, hey, you can't obviously take all your Senior Bowl players, but
right.
You likely draft those a lot. I think that we clearly hit that. We've been on that from the jump.
First of all, real quick, Greg got very upset in the chat that we didn't acknowledge that he did come up with gas first. It was before any of the other guys. So you guys are a bunch of copiers over there. And Ian the Great's got a great idea. He goes, let's call it the Wolf Athletic Performance Score. You can't call them WAPs. All right. Emilio, cover your ears.
Call it RAP. Ron Athletic Profile. There we go. Ron Wolf, right?
The rap score.
Be a crackhead. That hold to the wrong stuff.
DJ Clayton in the mix. I love it.
Hey, all right. So let's move this thing along. All right. Next question. Give me another grab here if you can, Tim. Not that kind of grab. This is a family program, but that'll work. All right. So Goody on answering character questions. This is another big thing, right? We talk about the athletic score.
Character questions. We got to get serious. Let's go serious.
Get serious.
Business suit, dude.
So here he was kind of being asked about, how do you kind of weigh out those character questions you may or may not have about a player?
Physical stuff and medical stuff, under the test, this, that. Is there any sort of questions that you lean on to try to gauge a player's competitiveness, how much he just wants to be a football player out there? Is there something that you lean on year after year you feel has helped you gauge that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, we do. It's their past history and what our scouts are able to determine while they're in the schools, and what the people that are around them say about them, how they handle adversity, how they handle teammates, all the things that go into that. That's really, now we do some psychological testing when the guys actually take the tests. That gives us some insight into some of those things, but really it's the boots on the ground and the guys that have, really invested in the people around that player and how he's handled himself in the 3 or 4 or 6 or 7 years he's been in college.
LeVay laughed when he said 6 or 7 years in college, right? He's so pissed off about that.
What do you think the psychological testing is? Do you think that's meeting with the team professionals, or do you think that's Wonderlic combined with
I think it's that whatever it was called, the SI score, whatever it was. That, remember the testing they did that CJ Stroud that was the big. Yeah, they pretty much all but confirmed he had been in meetings all day. He was dog ass tired. He comes in, takes the test, botched it. He ends up being a great quarterback, right? So I think when he giggled there and or kind of grinned and said when they'll take it, many agents are like, my player's not taking that now. Not after what happened to Stroud. So I think that's what he was referring to there, Tim, to be honest with you. Okay. Now, there may be something psychological that they do on the visit, but again, the player can refuse to even, submit a test there. Now, I will say this, as he was talking and saying, think about what he just said. We have all of these people we have our contacts at the universities. We got guys going into the college realm and getting this information. And if there was a problem with Ted McMillan, do you really think that they would have taken him and brung him in for a top 30 visit? Wouldn't they have already found that information out and been like, all right, let's remove him off the board?
Yeah.
Like, here's what I'm getting at. It's almost like they brung him in to confirm, here's what we came up with. There's no personal issues there. Same thing with James Pierce Jr. We did extensive investigating on the James Pierce stuff, meaning I reached out to 3 different UT Vols insiders, one of which came on the show. Every one of them said, Bub, I've been covering him the whole time he's been at Tennessee. There ain't nothing there. Mm-hmm. And the whole he didn't show up to practice thing, what happened there? Like we said, he said, I can tell you right now that was a personal issue. I'm not going to disclose the details of it, but that's a nothing burger, essentially is what he's saying. Now, when you look at Ted McMillan, the video that surfaced of him saying he didn't like to watch film, literally of all the stuff that they've tried to do to bring him down the board, right, during lying season, the best they could come up with was a secretly filmed video his freshman year of him saying he doesn't like to watch film. I think he checks the box for me. I'm sorry. You go into an NFL locker room and ask all 53 guys, do you like watching film on your own time? They may say yes, but I guarantee you get a couple daddy sodas in them on Larry's dime. Thank you, Larry, again. What's going to happen? I guarantee they're going to be like, yeah, man, I try not to. Hell, Kyler Murray had someone opening the iPad so it was showing he was logging hours while he was playing. What are we even talking about here? So,
they can't all be J Love, right? They can't all be sitting on the couch with wifey watching film, and Netflix at the same time. So we'll just leave it at that.
And listen, I do want that player that's a film junkie. Don't get me wrong. Yep. But you can't disqualify someone because their freshman year they said they didn't like to watch film. That's just
absolutely.
Crazy.
Yeah. So, do you think that Green Bay, just as a destination, just as a reputation, is a self-filtering point for certain prospects where they think if you don't love football, you don't go to Green Bay? You know what I'm saying? Like if you just want to come in, like AJ Dillon didn't want the club scene. He didn't want to be, with the paparazzi. He didn't want to see the glitz and glams of certain big cities. He wants to play football. That's what they asked Tucker Kraft. They said, why don't you go home? He goes, I live here. I got everything I need here. Yep. I work out. I football. What about the big cities? This is the biggest city I've ever lived in. Like, this is what I need. Do you think that there's a type of self-scouting or a type of self-evaluation that helps Green Bay look at these types of players and say, hey, you know what? I just know for a fact this isn't going to be a great fit because I can tell this is more of a city guy.
Right. I rock in the chat says, I don't like mowing the lawn, but I do it. Amen.
That's why they hire us, Clay.
That's exactly right. That's why they pay way too much money for people like us to mow their lawn. No doubt about it. Good to see you. Appreciate you, buddy. All right, moving along here. Actually, that's going to do it for hour one. We're going to continue this conversation with, I think we got 2 or 3 more comments from Goody, and then we're going to do a 7-round mock draft on hour 2, but we'll continue this conversation with Goody, just trying to get a little insight right as the draft, approaches. And this next comment, he's actually specifically talking about the draft board. I think you guys will want to see it. That's called a tease. We'll see you in hour 2. Appreciate you.